Good afternoon, Scott Baker. Good afternoon, Emily Blackburn.
Hey there.
How are you, Mikey? Today it is November the 5th, Wednesday afternoon, 2025. Field note 1609. And I'm going to suggest something about this headline. Your leadership role opens up new conversations if you let it. It's a good headline. My thing on this is I love this topic. I actually think the field note, and I get excited about the implication of this field note more than the headline would imply, but maybe that's just me.
More than it would imply.
Oh yeah,
You're thinking.
I don't think it. Look, I'll get right to it. Which is the magic of anything is how we connect to other people and ideas spark and relationships develop and we do things together and it's exciting and you start to kind of create. There's like. Somebody used the word synergize before we went on there, and you're like, okay, this is where it all comes together, right? When you start to see the smoke and flames happen. And I think that when you look at the headline, it's like your leadership role opens up new conversations if you let it. That doesn't sound as exciting as what I was saying, does it?
No. Well, I was the one who was guilty of bringing up the idea of synergy beforehand, and it was a little bit of a joke. I was telling Emily that I had a stack of business cards that trace my entire career path. And at this one organization, I had like 7 or 8 different business cards. And one of the titles that I used to have, and it was, I don't even know why, but it was on a business card, so it was real, was Director of Synergy, right? Mm-hmm. And it just made me think as we were reading through this field note, like once you become the VP of something, once you have like a certain role, then you have access to be able to get with other people who have that role, right? Mm-hmm, well, if you're the director of Synergy, there's not exactly a conference in your name that's going to be held.
No. Well, we could spend the next 13 minutes just making fun of you on that part. But let me go to the really touchy thing, which is, Emily, I believe that your title, as many in our firm who are high-level advisors, coaches, executives, is managing director. Is that the actual title?
Soon to be, we hope. Fingers crossed.
Yes. Okay. We're headed in that direction. But like in all of this, right? Like even in organizations where there's a general manager, I always want to go and be like, how's it going managing generally? Like, so whether you're a consultant or a managing director, right? Mm-hmm. Like we can get, these things can mean nothing, but they can also mean everything, right? So what would be the weirdest title that you have had?
I don't know. I think Mikey's got me beat there. Director of Synergy. But I think you raise a good point there. The ambiguous titles are a little bit harder to externally network around, right? Let me find another consultant that I can talk to. Well, consultant, as we all know, is a very vague and ambiguous title, right? It's hard to find people out in the wild that maybe do the same things that you do.
Well, do you have a sharper way you describe this to the person sitting next to you on the plane?
Yes, I pick one of the hats that I wear, and it depends on the flavor of the day, right?
You're reading the person next to you, like
exactly. So say on a Tuesday I'm doing more coaching, then I'm an executive coach, right? On a Wednesday I'm doing more strategic communications consulting. So I think it's picking up on the skill set of the other person and kind of looking within to see, okay, what of my skills could I benefit from talking to this person about?
Well, strategic communications sounds way more interesting if you introduce yourself at a party than consultant or 100%, whatever. Right.
100%.
Yeah.
So now the admonition of the field note, though, is you actually have some value wherever you are with whatever that title is. And you can use this to not just network, but extend the people, the other human beings on the planet to whom you are connected in some meaningful and reciprocal, beneficial way. That sounds exciting. And this sounds to me to be like right down the Mikey Ames alley.
Oh yeah, I love doing this kind of stuff. And that's one of the reasons that I love the firm was the idea of peer groups and roundtables in the way that we conduct them. And mostly because I've not seen it done anywhere else. Now I've been a part of a lot of networking groups, so networking professionals who get together, but it always just feels like a little bit of like a pyramid scheme, right? In those types of groups, because you're paying a membership due and then everyone's coming together, but you're not exactly sure what kind of benefit that you're getting from it, but you need to provide a certain amount of benefit for a value for everybody else. And the kind of value you provide is actually defined. And so you look for the cheapest way possible to provide value just so that you could keep coming. But then everyone ends up kind of providing this cheap value as possible. So unless you're the type of person who looks to just provide value without the transaction at all, but you're not attracting those kinds of people because you've got all of the transactions defined before you even are able to sign up for the place, right? So, and then I show up to Admired Leadership and CRA and see for like dozens of years now, right? We've been doing these roundtables that kind of throw it in the face of those. So one of the two of you, Emily, can you explain the way that we do roundtables and peer groups to everybody?
It's really a beautiful thing, Mikey. And I think this field note in practice, right, is we're seeking to link people across the same role or level of seniority or even specialty in some cases, right? Bring them all in one room, bring to light the problems that they're facing and make them talk about it in front of their peers at other organizations, right? So we do this both regionally. We've started doing it with industry specific. We've kicked off a higher education roundtable, which I'm really excited about. And it's all about just building those connections, because I think the subtext of this field note, guys, is the only one getting in your way is yourself of making these connections, right? So I think CRA kind of pushes the easy button for some folks and puts them all in the room together without having to take that first step of reaching out and being vulnerable.
Right. And Scott, you've been part of the roundtable group in Pittsburgh for a lot of years.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned to me in the past that there's a lot of people in that group who aren't aware of like the services that CRA provides. Like,
for sure, yeah.
Idea, right? And what's the advantage?
In fact, when we're in those conversations, and one of our managing directors, Diana Furtrovsky, leads that conversation, but we're facilitators. We're actually there to be as invisible as we can in some ways. And for me being there, now maybe there are people who are reading field notes or using Alex, or they're in I don't know if anybody's using currently a coach from our organization, but there's actually nothing transactional on my part. But I like all of those people. I learn from all of those people. And when I'm driving around Pittsburgh, like I was last night at 10:30 after a show, I can see buildings, and those buildings mean something because of the people I know who work in those buildings.
Right, yeah.
That's the exciting part. Now, the part of the field note that's at the heart of this is when you actually have a title. Like whether I've been at different times, a journalist or a broadcaster or a news anchor, a managing editor, an editor in chief. Well, if you meet another editor in chief, I'm also an editor in chief. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. But you kind of qualify people to be like, all right, well, we can just talk about stuff, because those peer groups work when they are high level of the same kind of category. If you have a top of the house communications officer and then you invite in the junior copywriter, the conversation quality is going to go way down. People get more protective. There's not a lot of openness. There's not a lot of candor. But when you know that you're in a meeting where the people are committed to each other, committed to the conversation, real dialogue can actually take place at that point. And what the field note is saying is, you can actually do this all the time. And rather than you reaching out for somebody to be like, hey, can you help me with my career? It's a different thing when you're like, you have a title, it's similar to mine, we have similar roles. And so let's just talk from time to time. Or if I meet you at a conference, or if there's some way to follow up, just start developing. I do this all the time on X. Like I'll just DM somebody that has some similar background to where I'm at and be like, I have a feeling that we have a lot in common here, right? And when they do realize after a while that you're not selling anything, you're not seeking anything, you just think that it's cool to connect, those defense shields come down and all kinds of great stuff happens.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think, it's easy for those self-limiting beliefs to kind of come into play when you're thinking about doing this, right? This person's not going to want to talk to me. Why would they spend the time? But I think, to that, I would say, put yourself in that person's shoes. If you had a peer from another organization come to you and say, hey, I think we have similar backgrounds. I'd love to hear about some of the challenges that you're facing. See if they're similar to mine and see if we can help each other. Would you not say yes? So what's stopping you from reaching out to another person and asking the same?
Yeah, I would say yes right away from that, but I would still be suspicious until I actually saw, there's no sales pitch here. Like it would probably take a meeting or two for that level of suspicion to come down. And frankly, that's how Scott and I met, right?
It is true. Yeah.
We met through
Emily probably does not know this story.
No,
Oh,
do
yeah.
tell.
Scott was eavesdropping on a flight to a conversation that was happening behind
Scott?
him.
Yeah.
No.
Yes, and
I'm a
so
reporter. You got to pay
he
attention.
didn't even interject in the conversation. He didn't even turn around and say, "Oh, hey, how about this and this," and interject. He just listened. He wrote a note, and he thought something to himself. Oh, that'd be a great idea for a story based on that, right? A year later,
A year later,
he sees this note that he wrote. By
because
the way,
I go back through my notebooks.
I'm not on the plane. I'm not on
Right.
the airplane at all, right? A year later, he sees this note and he's like, "Oh, that is a good idea for a story. Let me
It's still a good
research
idea.
who that guy is," right? And so he reached out to that guy based upon trying to figure him out based on his social footprint, and found out that it was the brother-in-law of this guy that Scott wants to actually interview. Okay. Well, both of those people are business partners of mine, right? And so the guy who was on the plane is who Scott reaches out to first. And my business partner says, "You're going to have to talk to Mikey because I don't know what you're going to do." And he preempted the call. Like Alex preempted the call that you had made to me. He said, "I don't know who this guy is." He talked to me about some conversation. Alex was under the impression that he was in the conversation, right?
Yeah. No.
He wasn't even in the conversation. And so Scott and I we ended up talking on the phone randomly because he reached out. He burst through 3 layers and said, "We've got one thing in common and I want to be able to get to it," right? And that set off, oh my goodness, probably 6 years of like, well, once a quarter, I would reach out to Scott. Scott would reach out to me. We would go have lunch together in Dallas when he happened to be in the area. And it was one of these things like I have like 4 or 5 of those kinds of relationships where it's like, I don't know what it is.
There was, and by the way, the specific thing we were going to try to do never happened.
No.
Yeah.
It's still a good idea.
It still is a good idea. Yeah. And Mikey's leaving out that we won't get into details, but the person in common in there was somebody very famous, right? So that was what would catch your ear. It wasn't like I was just trying to I got to listen in on these weird conversations. So I was like, oh, this person actually does some social media filtering for this well-known person. And I had an idea that was really clever around that idea. That never happened. And then we had no transactional point in mind. And then just over time, and then years later, I come to Admired Leadership and I'm like, Mikey, are you maybe in? And then all of a sudden, Mikey's working with us.
Yeah.
But that was just a matter of what is saying in the field note, which is some really wonderful ways of phrasing this, which is your position, your title gives you access to a network. And then this idea of the deliberate building of external networks. It doesn't just happen. You have to be thoughtful, but use your position or your title as the passport to conversations. That's the thing that I think a lot of people just, they don't do this extra work because it is in that category of important but not urgent. And so you need to fixate on making sure that when you're thinking about the things that are important, but they're not pressing on you all the time, but those are the ones that are really going to pay off.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I love the metaphor. Oh, go ahead, Mikey.
Oh, I was going to ask if you have any relationships that you let slide like that by not doing what the field note says here that are like real regrets. Most of us do, right?
Oh, all the time. I think one of my biggest self-limiting beliefs is this fear that I'm going to come off as transactional, right? That I want something in return. And, we've spoken about that a little bit, but I think to that, I would say, if you started a new role, and there was a book on how to be successful, how to navigate the biggest challenges that you're going through in that role, would you not read it? Right. So building a connection, putting yourself out there, reaching out is just a live version of that. Right. And so I think, don't get in your head too much. Just make the ask. The worst thing that they can do is say no or don't respond. Right. And so I am constantly giving myself that coaching to put myself out there, get comfortable with rejection. But more often than not, you're not going to get a rejection. You're going to get enthusiasm and an eagerness to connect and build a relationship through a series of conversations and an ongoing dialogue.
Now, if you are transaction oriented, right, and you're like, I still kind of need an incentive to actually have a conversation with somebody, right? Let me introduce the idea of like instilling the $50 idea into the way that you go about this. Like, so normally you wouldn't have a lunch like this with someone that you don't know very well. and you don't want it to be a transactional thing, but you do want to walk away from any conversation that you have with an idea that you would pay $50 for, like an idea that you could implement right now.
It's a good idea.
And so if you're going to go have lunch with somebody, you want to both give a $50 idea and get a $50 idea out of it. And that way it can scratch your transactional edge while it still stays relational.
Yeah. Now my ideas are worth way more. So
than $50. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's expensive.
But it's also a wonderful thing that we talked about the other day of when Seth Godin says, we're all waiting for that magic moment for the light to flip on and it just never seems to happen as much as we would want it to. But yet we can actually do that for other people all the time. And I think that if you're bringing $50 ideas or $500 ideas to people all the time, and you're turning on lights and creating little moments of connection, it's just as likely, Mikey, that I would have known you for a decade and recommended you to another organization where I didn't work, and you ended up having the best career opportunity of your life. Just happened that it ended up being where we're working in the same team, but that wouldn't have mattered to me at all if that had been the direction that it occurred. So it's just fun being part of that process of saying, look, we have a limited time on the planet to kind of create the kind of connections that can really make a dent in the universe. And if you're just looking to be that kind of person, get the best ideas, the best connections, the deepest relationships, just be that person, and good things are going to happen.
Right. All right. Fantastic. Great way to finish this. And let's do it again. We'll make it a full circle.
Excellent.
All right. Thank you,
See ya.
Emily. Thank you, Scott.
Thanks both.